11 years ago, Frank Greeff was a chef. 10 years ago, he started a business with his brothers in a completely unrelated industry. Last year, Frank sold that business for $180 million. But it's what he risked to achieve that outcome that is truly breathtaking. It's a not for the faint-hearted episode 655 of the 14-year-old award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of courageous marketing. And oh boy, is it courageous today. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and I have an insatiable curiosity for uncovering marketing ideas that help businesses just like yours, yes, yours, to grow. And I do that by having a weekly in-depth conversation with a successful founder that has walked the path before us. How very kind of them. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner, ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. As per usual, team, there's marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Today's special guest, Frank Greeff, used to be a chef who, with his two brothers 10 years ago, started a business from scratch called RealBase, helping land rats, real estate agents with their marketing. It grew, wait for it, to 350 staff. It was turning over 35 million large ones annually by the end, and was then acquired by domain.com.au, a big real estate site in Australia, for $180 million last year. Frank, welcome. I have so many questions, brother. So why don't you start by giving us the 1-minute RealBase pitch and telling us where the idea came from?
No worries at all. Thank you so much for having me on. So look, RealBase it's slightly confusing for most people because it's a business-to-business type of operation. But essentially, every time a property sells in Australia and New Zealand, a real estate agent needs a conglomerate of real estate suppliers. And so what we do is we are
when a property's listed, more to the point.
Yes, exactly. When a property's listed, exactly right. So what we do is we facilitate those transactions through our online platform. And so essentially it's a marketplace. We connect real estate agents who are looking to sell properties to real estate suppliers who facilitate those marketing items.
Sounds fairly easy. I did look at the website. I was sort of like a bit bamboozled, but I get it. That's a good pitch, mate. So, mate, you're a chef. You're a chef. And 10 years ago, your two brothers come knocking and say, let's start a business. Just tell us about that moment.
Yeah, no worries. Look, so I was a chef. I was working 60 hours a week. I was on the fish section in a fine dining restaurant here in Sydney. I was on approximately $36,000 a year. And I guess the moment came where enough was enough. And I lived with my brother. We had an investment property in Narrabeen here where we live locally. And he walked in the room one day. He was a real estate photographer. My other brother was a real estate floor planner, and he said, hey, why don't we go and install signboards in Melbourne? There's an opportunity there. I know some other photographers who need signboards for their clients. And so within a few weeks, we actually packed up everything we had. We bought a ute and we moved to Melbourne, where we started the first kind of iteration of our business, which is a purely physical services company. So it's about as high-tech as he would hold the signboard up because he was much stronger, bigger, and musclier than me, and I would drill in the screws, and that's kind of it was our lives for about 12 months.
So you, as a chef, chef's a tough job, and $36K a year in the fish section of a fancy restaurant, and from my experience, the backstage of a fancy restaurant ain't too fancy.
No, not at all.
You're probably going home whinging to your brothers. They're probably a bit dissatisfied in their jobs and going, geez, we can see a gap in the market in this real estate business. And you didn't need much convincing.
Not much convincing at all.
And obviously at that point in time, it was almost a lifestyle decision for you to get out of the kitchen.
100%.
And RealBase. So then, okay, so you go down to Melbourne, you're from Sydney, you start installing signboards for real estate agents.
Yeah.
Obviously that then morphed into RealBase. Was there another step in between?
So a couple of steps between. So what happened is after a year of doing that, me and my eldest brother, so just us two at that time, we decided to sell the business. So at the time, we sold for 150 grand. I truly thought I'd made it. I bought myself a nice little Volkswagen Golf,
Nice.
and I thought that was it. I'm set for life.
I'll live in a Golf.
My retirement fund is done. And so we came back to Sydney, and we actually started the business again with my middle brother. And so exactly the same kind of clone stamp, if you will. And so we took
just
that
out of interest, Frank.
Yeah.
Why did you sell the business? Just because you thought, well, shit, 150 is a lot of money, or you thought actually there's not much left in it?
To be honest, there's plenty left in it, but Melbourne was not our home. So we lived in a place called Croydon. It's about 35, 40 minutes outside of Melbourne.
There's your first mistake. Hello, everyone from Croydon.
Exactly. And look, and we lived in a 3-bedroom townhouse.
Right.
Our commercial printers were inside that townhouse. We had a little backyard shed, which I would build the signboards. It was, I talk about the chef world as being really hard. That was equally as hard. You're waking up. We didn't have a lounge room because our printer was in our lounge room. It was just work every single day, and there was no respite. I had no friends around there. We worked 6 days. And we didn't do anything on the weekend. And so it was just more about lifestyle.
Hey Frank, just there's going to be lots of interruptions because your story is fascinating.
No, please.
Previous past guest, Melanie Perkins, who started Canva.
Oh, yes.
She also started with a printer in her lounge room, mate. So stop complaining because Canva's now valued at $26 billion.
Yeah, wow. That's incredible. I did not know that part of the story. That's really cool. So, yeah, I'm in Melanie's shadows. Nice.
Yes. All right. So you go back to Sydney.
Yeah. So we go back to Sydney and we do it all over again. And so this time, now I have my friends around, the family's around, a bit more of a lifestyle, but we got, a lot more serious. And so probably over the next 4 years, at this time, what's important to note, Tim, is we were inside a franchise. So this wasn't our own business. It wasn't yet RealBase. We owned a head franchise agreement to be able to do all of the signboards and all of the brochure printing in New South Wales.
So it was Melbourne wasn't a franchise.
Melbourne was a franchise as well. So
okay.
Yes, exactly.
That's tough, isn't it? Was that did you find that frustrating because you didn't have a lot of control over, what you could do from a marketing perspective, client perspective?
100%. Look, I think there's many franchises out there that are incredible and they offer a lot of value to people. But our ambitions of where we wanted to go and what we saw as our brand, who we are in the market, it wasn't represented by this particular franchise. And so we ultimately had to make a decision at some stage to kind of go our own path and pave our own way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so we did. And so at year 4, we decided, okay, the time has come. We've probably gotten that business to roughly 850,000 in annualized revenue at that stage, which meant we were peeling away a check of, because the franchise fees was like 15% gross. And as we know, businesses, to make a 15% net profit margin is pretty good. And so gross, to then try and figure out how to get profit on top of that is pretty challenging. And so we made a decision. And so I guess the complexities of where this is, at the same time, my parents were also in the franchise. Now, they had their own franchise agreement. So we had no business relation to one another. They had their own. So they had the state franchise for photography, and we had the state franchise for signboards. So although by association, we're all in the same franchise, no business connections. And
What's
so
the
what
franchise called, Frank?
Oh, look, that's the one thing I never. Look, I can, but I'm a very big believer in just like, I don't want to tarnish anybody's brands, regardless of, if we had, you'll find out very shortly it was a very negative outcome that happened from it all.
Right.
But yeah, I prefer not to say.
Your folks are in it. They've got the state one for another category within the franchise. You guys are going along. Yep.
And
I feel like something's going to hit the fan real soon.
It's going to hit the fan very, very, very big. So what happened is we got in front of a whiteboard, me and my two brothers. Look, we in our brains, we're kind of strategic, but we're very quick with our decisions. We're black and white, and we wanted to make a quick decision. So we said, okay, what is the worst case scenario? If we make this call, what could the worst outcome be? And so we decided that on this whiteboard, the worst outcome was by association, our parents will lose their business. And at that time, to give you a sense, they were probably doing $500,000 net per year. This was their nest egg. They'd been working on their business for 10 plus years. And they actually were having a negotiation to sell their franchise or their franchise agreement, which is going to set them up for retirement.
Did they know what was happening with their sons?
Not really. So so the context here is that they lived in Victoria. They had their own business. They knew ours was going well, but because we wanted to not have a weird, associative effect on them, we kind of kept them sheltered, if you will. And so we made a decision as the brothers that said, okay, well, if this happens, if they lose their business, do we make a promise to one another that we will pay them back $1 million? And so that day we all looked each other eye to eye and we said, yep, we will do this. And so from there we went, and I was really lucky. As I always say, 66% of the Greeff brothers are hyper intelligent, and one gets to talk. And I'm sure you'll figure out which one gets to talk within today. And so we went down. My eldest brother was a software engineer. He taught himself how to code from a very young age, and so he built us this online platform. And this would be the start of our brand, which at the time was called RealHub.
Oh, okay. So has the shit hit the fan yet? Or
the shit has not hit the fan.
Oh, okay. So
yes.
Okay, so you've decided this is a fascinating story, and edge of the seat stuff never happens on the Small Business Big Marketing podcast. Your parents have got a franchise down in Victoria.
Yeah,
they're looking to sell it.
Yes,
and they're doing $500,000. They're going to get $1 million. They needed $1 million in order to be like the happy days. You guys go, listen, we're about to cause some waves in the same franchise group.
Yes,
which may mean that our parents lose everything. The three brothers get together and go, well, we're leaving the franchise group. We're going to start, I think you said a name, RealHub, which is not the end business. And that is how you three blokes are going to get your mum and dad $1 million if need be. Am I right so far?
You are spot on. You're spot on.
Chapter 3. Over to you, Frank.
Chapter 3. So, and remember the context here is that our business is only doing $800,000 in gross, and we're probably profitable about $40,000. So $1 million's a pretty big deal.
Well, and that's the fascinating thing. You're about to start a business knowing it has to make $1 million at least.
Yes, that's
in order
correct.
To pay your folks. Okay.
Yes, exactly right. No, you're good. You're good. And so we built this platform, and I use the word we very loosely because I didn't, but my very smart brothers did. And 9 months later, we launched it. We launched into the market. And so what had happened, we then peeled away from the brand. We launched and established our RealHub brand, and we moved all of our clients onto our online proprietary technology. Are you
in the franchise at this point still for the 9 months?
Well, this is for that 9 months, we're in the set franchise. The moment we launched.
So you're side hustling.
We're side hustling, that's right. And so we kind of sheltered the one brother. Okay, you no longer do the signboards, you no longer do the printing, you're in the corner and you're coding away relentlessly for the next 9 months. And he did, and he smashed it. We launched the platform, we launched the new brand, we gave our notice for the franchise, and we were on cloud 9 because the response from the market, the response from our clients was like, you've stepped up your game tenfold. This is incredible. And we thought we were just killing it, right? Like, with no word back from the franchise, nothing negative had happened.
What problem was RealHub solving?
So it was the same. So yes in the beginning, but no in the end. So let me explain. So the yes part is what we were doing is, again, we're still a physical services company, and we are really trying to solve one thing for our clients, which is today, at that time, in order to order a signboard and brochure was a highly complex, slow, problematic process, to the point of, like, let's say, Tim, you're ordering some brochures. There was no way in the old platform to tell me how many brochures. So you would place an order, we would receive an email, and I'd call you and go, hey, Tim, thanks so much for your email. How many brochures would you like, right? And it taught us amazing customer service, we were very friendly about it. But as a customer, to be able to, if you went onto Amazon and you're like, I'm going to buy this item, and then, Jeff Bezos calls you and goes, hey, just checking, just checking.
Is that 1,000 or 2,000 flyers in 4 color?
That's right. And so we just stripped down the time. We worked out that we probably stripped down the time by 1/5 of what it took previously. So it was incredibly streamlined and just made their lives easier. And therefore, for us, we could facilitate more orders at a faster pace.
Okay.
But then I got the call.
And
at
Hello,
5 a.m.
it's Frank.
At 5 a.m. on a Saturday, my brother calls me and he says, Mum and Dad have just lost their business. It was the day their transaction was closing. So the franchise had purposely knew about all the timings of everything. And so to essentially stick it to them was 5 a.m. that day when their transaction was closing 12 p.m. that day. They called them and said, your franchise agreement has been terminated. You are no longer part of the franchise. You no longer own this business. And their entire livelihoods disappeared in a single email. And I got a call from my brother. He says, we've got to get in the office. We've got to get into the war room, if you will, and we've got to figure out a way out. Like, we now owe our parents $1 million. What are we going to do?
Frank, wow, I've got bloody goosebumps. Tell me, how much do your parents know? Did your parents know at that point about the pact that you guys had made? Nothing.
Oh,
buddy.
Yeah, they had no idea. And we weren't doing it in a way that was trying to be wrong by them. It was more in a way of a protection to them, because we figured the less they know around what we're doing, they're not in any way guilty. Do you know what I mean? There's no commercial relationship between us, and therefore there's no reason they should lose their business. Mm-hmm. And there certainly wasn't. You know, they could have effectively taken this for head franchisor to courts, and likely they would have won, but they made a smart and pragmatic decision that, well, we're going to sit in the courts for the next 4 to 5 years. Only real winners are the lawyers.
5 a.m. phone call from your brother. You're in the war room by 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad. When's the phone call to Mum and Dad?
So the phone call. You look, now we're back and forth with Mum and Dad. We're chatting. They're now going to drive from Albury to come and see us in Sydney, and we're going to have to now figure out as a family. And this, Tim, to me, is one of the most critical and important moments, and the part that I'm incredibly grateful for having amazing parents. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We're all together in an apartment we rented in Sydney. My mum has tears streaming down her face. Their entire livelihoods have disappeared. And she looks me in the eye and she says, "This is not your fault. We back you 100%. Don't feel guilty. Like, we're so proud of you guys. Like, go smash it." And like, to me, like, I'm a father. I'm a father. I have a 1-year-old son, and I'm like, if I'm half as good of a parent, I'll be stoked, because like, to have that kind of humility and like grace for your children, to be like, hey, there's nothing on you, and just have that like pure love and pure, like backing. It's just incredible.
Three cheers for Mrs. Greeff.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Frank, I am interested to just who made the call to Mum and Dad on the Saturday morning? Do you remember? Was it you, or do you remember?
So what would have happened? It would at that time. So the context there is, I'm about 23, 24. So I'm kind of I'm not yet made my way in the world. So I think it was all through my eldest brother. And so that, they're the ones who told him they lost his business, and so a lot of this stuff is happening through him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, mate, that's amazing. We'll wrap things up there. Thanks, Frank. No, we're just beginning, mate. Wow. So Mum and Dad kiss the franchise goodbye, kiss $1 million goodbye. At that point, they don't, they back you, but they don't know. You don't know either.
No, we have no idea. We're taking a risk. We're taking a gamble.
Are you sweating bullets, or because Mum offered up so much love, unconditional love, you're like, okay, we got this, and we just need to put one step in front of the other strategically, and we'll be okay.
We're sweating bullets, right? Like, we're sweating bullets, but I think what the reality was is we now had no choice but to succeed, right? So if you think about the family of 5, everybody has lost my parents have lost their livelihood. The brothers now have $1 million debt. Their business is nowhere close. We got actively targeted by the franchise. So we went to mediation. We had to pay $50,000. That time was my net worth, you know what I mean? So we paid $50,000 to mediation. They then went and took 30% of our customers. So now our revenue has dropped by 30%. And so we had zero, there wasn't a choice here. It was like, that created the most important fuel to our success. So like, if you could rewind time and say, okay, parents didn't lose their business, I would say, no, take it, because this was the driver that so I'm a very big believer in understanding people's why. With my team, it's like, I want to know your why, your driver. And that context was something that, like, it was the most powerful fuel, because it no longer became like, I've got to win this client because I want to be rich. It's like, no, I got to do this because I need to give that money back to my parents. Like I want to make them proud, but I want to set them up because now we've kind of destroyed it.
Oh, what talk about powerful why? I was only watching a bit of Simon Sinek earlier this week.
Yeah.
That brings it home, mate. That totally brings it home. Why do we need that customer? Yeah, the money would be good, but keeping mum and dad off the street would be even better.
Exactly.
Whoa. Right, so Real Hub. Okay, War Room. What's the War Room reveal on the Saturday morning?
The main thing was this. So the two brothers, as I said, hyper intelligent, but their ability to sell a product that's not their skill set. And so the thing was, they both look at me and it's, Frank, you've got to go out and sell, right? And so remembering, I can fill it a really mean piece of fish. I have no idea how to sell. And so at that time, I went and purchased a $2,500 online course on how to sell. and I would every single morning run scripts and dialogues by myself in the lounge room, and I had to just learn and figure out how to sell. And so I was making cold calls every single day and having to I just had no choice here, and I had to start selling this product on scale. And so the amount of learnings in the next 12 months were just crazy because I just fully consumed myself in information. So whether it be, I read Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, and learned about the psychological principles of selling, or read Grant Cardone's book on 10X, thinking 10X bigger than you are today. I just consumed as much information because we had no one around us. Our quote used to be, we're just making the shit up as we go. So I was like, okay, I have to learn this kind of practice, and that's supercharged. Now that we started to go, we started to fly from that point in time.
And Real Hub is selling what at this point in time? Like, where's the money?
Still signboards and brochures. So we're
exactly
still a physical, still signboards and brochures. We had above us, we had a team of one or two around us. So we're still very much, I'd be going to sell in the morning and then get in the ute and go install a sign. So
it sounds to me, last week's guest, fellow Ben Leonard, he started an online brand called Beast Gear, sold it within 3 years for multi-millions of dollars. His big tip, Frank, was do what your competitors are too lazy to do.
Yeah, nice.
Feels a little bit like what you did. I mean, not having a box to say, not having a field in the form to say this is how many brochures we need. That just seems lazy. That's not like a technical. That's not a technical problem.
No, that's not.
Is that what you kind of did? This franchise wasn't doing certain things, and you kind of stepped in and filled those gaps.
Yes, but so the key to understand is we were the only franchisees in the area. So when we left, there was no franchise to compete with. We then actually had and this is kind of the chapter 4, if you will, was our true competitor, which was a competitor in the space, had been around for 20 years. And they owned roughly 35% of the entire Australian market of every property that sold would go through them. And they were our true competitor. And that was part of our reason. In order to actually compete with them, we couldn't be in this franchise because they were leaps and bounds ahead of us. And so we knew we had to build our own technology. And but to your point, that is exactly what we had to do. Is we had a view that in order to compete in the space where you have a monopoly, if you will, we had to be half the price and double as good. Was always our methodology. Now, half the price wasn't we're trying to be a race to the bottom, but they had created such incredible margins that it was very simple, So I can still remember everything. We're very commercial, the brothers, and everything that came out of the printer. We knew exactly what the dollars and cents were. So 100 brochures used to cost $17.80, and we would sell it at $95. That competitor would sell at $170. 170, that's huge margins, you know what I mean? And so at 95, we're still great. There's still plenty to be made there. And so that's we knew we had to do these things in order to start to fly.
Yep. Did the sweating of bullets, Frank, disappear at any point? Well, they did disappear at some point. Do you remember when? Because you sound like you got so immersed that maybe everything else was like, you had blinkers on.
Oh, we had 100% had blinkers on. So yes is the answer. And when did that come? It came after the dust had settled. So we'd paid our mediation. We'd lost those clients. I started to go out. I started to get momentum in my selling. And then we started to get that feedback, and the
You're
feedback
out of
from
the
the
franchise
client.
at this point.
We're out of the franchise. We're out of the franchise. We're flying, and the feedback from the market is this is incredible. Like the technology you've built is incredible. The prices are incredibly reasonable, and I started to get we started to get momentum with these clients. And so then, like I said, we'd lost 30% of our revenue. But within a 6-month time frame, I've already picked up more than 30% revenue, and now we're increasing. Now we're going above what we were before. And so I remember really clearly, I set myself a goal after reading the 10X book, which was we had this big blackboard on the wall of our tiny little factory, and on the blackboard, one of our early shareholders who became our lead product designer. He drew me a thermometer, and the thermometer where the mercury would go was a drawing of Mount Fuji to represent Japan. And every time I came back with a sale, I get to draw with a little red crayon or red chalk, working up to $1 million. And that was my goal. Every day I saw it, I would work my way up to a recurring revenue of $1 million, remembering our business was only $700,000-800,000. And I said, okay, in 12 months, I'm going to double the business from a revenue standpoint, double and a half. And if I do that, in January next year, we get to go to Japan to go on a ski holiday.
Oh, I love it. Another why. Another power of
Another why. Exactly.
As an aside, was this back in 1962? You had a blackboard or a whiteboard?
Yeah, a blackboard. He's a very good drawer. And so he would come in on the weekend and draw something inspirational from like a quote, something that's happened recently, and he would draw something beautiful.
I love it. Getting to $1 million recurring revenue, was that a month or a year?
So that was $1 million per year.
Per year
and
recurring.
So when I say recurring, is in our field, it's quite nice. You get a new customer, they do, let's say, 100 properties per year. That makes you, $70,000 a year. And once you have them, the following year you'll get them again, and they'll do roughly the same amount of transaction, give or take 5 to 10%.
What I'm interested in and worried about is to pay your mum and dad $1 million clear is not $1 million recurring revenue a year.
No,
it's a lot more than that.
It's a lot more.
Was there a payment plan? I'm just trying to. The OCD in me says, is it a chunk of dough? Here it is, mum and dad, or is it a payment plan? So
our ambitions then started to grow really strong, right? And so what we didn't want to do was go, hey, mum and dad, we're going to do a $50,000 a year payment plan. It was no, we're going to peel off $1 million check when the time is right.
Nice.
And hold on. And they would say, you don't have to. You don't owe it to us. And we were like, yeah, no, we do. And so the $1 million recurring wasn't $1 million recurring. It was $1 million on top of what we already had. So it's to go from 700 to go to 1.7 within 12 months.
Got it. You talked about, so we're still in Real Hub land. The business
we
you
are
sell,
in Real Hub land.
Domain.com.au is RealBase. So
yes.
What was the hockey stick inflection in Real Hub? You're getting great feedback.
Yeah.
You're undercutting your competitors by, it sounds like 50%, actually 100%.
Yeah.
some crazy number. So they're all good things. You're clearly offering a better service. Customer service is more personable. Quality of the output's better. All that stuff. Was there any one particular thing that led to the inflection?
There was. So what happened is we then quickly realized within that year of going ham, going hard, was this is far greater than us being a physical service company. Look, what we have built is we intimately understand from the ground up the process that a signboard, a brochure, a photography supplier needs to run their business in a much more well-oiled way. And so we went, okay, what if we instead pivot into we become a technology business? Our printing and signboards, we keep that, but we instead offer this to every supplier in all of Australia and New Zealand, and we just facilitate the transaction like a marketplace. And so then we decided, okay, in order to do that, what do we need? Okay, well, we need every supplier, and then now we need big brand customers who are going to essentially get the benefit. So let me explain to you exactly. So let's say a Bell Property was our first big inflection moment. And Bell Property was at the time 82 offices. Their challenge is, they have offices in New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania. How do they have brand consistency? How do they make the signboard look the same in every state? And so what we brought to the table was, well, okay, you have one entry point for all of your franchisees. They come here and they can order from any supplier, and every supplier then gets the benefit of having this amazing piece of technology. And you get the benefit of having brand compliance, so seeing all the data, seeing everything there. And so then we started to win these big brand deals, so Bell Property, LJ Hooker, all these big, multi, either 100 offices at a time or, LJ Hooker at the time was 200 offices. And so this then started to, I talked before about, recurring revenue. We started going for, like $500,000 deals. So now I'm closing $500,000 yearly recurring revenue deals, but on a technology, EBITDA multiplier, you know what I mean? So like at some stage, this will become a lot more attractive than a 1 to 2 times multiplier like a physical services company.
I've got a how do you get past the Doberman question here, Frank? So let's just go down that rabbit hole. Bell Properties and what was the other one you mentioned? Was it Stockdale and Lego or?
LJ Hooker.
LJ Hooker. I mean, for those listening overseas, these are two big players in the real estate agent market in Australia. Are they existing clients of yours? I'm wondering, how do you all of it? They're not. He's Frank shaking his head. They're not. So how do you get past the Dobermans at those two to make the pitch?
So I became very clear and crisp in my sales strategy. And I worked with this idea around an influencer strategy. So I was very weird, Tim. I had on the back of my wall in my room, as well as on the computer in my office, I had every logo of the brands that I wanted to work with, strategically going from small to large. And the large ones in the center were the golden gooses, and the small ones on the right and left-hand side were my stepping stones. So I had a strategy which was, in my particular core area, there's always one influential or aspirational business. Now, this translates beyond real estate. So it's like if your particular core market, there is an aspirational business which everybody looks up to. Okay, well, what are my stepping stones to get to them? And once I get them, then everybody around them falls by the wayside. And so I looked at each one of these in these different ones. So I went from first it's a boutique individual office, but all the offices around them will want to go. Once I do that, I can then get a 7-office group, and then I can and then I slowly worked in. So by the time I get to an 80-office group, what I would do is part of the learnings from influence, the psychology of selling, was all around social proof. So my stories I would tell would be, hey, Tim, it's really interesting you have that challenge and concern. X, Y, and Z also had that similar thing. Now, in that conversation, I've just told you that we work with X, Y, and Z, and you believe they're aspirational. I already know that. I haven't had to say, Tim, did you know I work with them? And then your back's up. You know what I mean? So it was all strategic ways in order to get them. But some of these deals took years. Somebody
it's a long game.
Yeah,
for sure. That's the stepping stone game, but it's solid. It's so solid. It reminds me again of a past guest, Steve Sims, who Steve. I've had him on a number of times, but one time I got him on because he has Elton John as a client. It's like, well, how do you get Elton John as a client? And it was quite simple in the end. That is, you have to get the big Doberman's Elton. Well, you got to get to him. Before him is Elton's husband, David, whatever his name is. But before David, there's a litany of baby Dobermans, Steve would call them. And you identify who those baby Dobermans are. It could be an executive assistant. It could be the receptionist. It could be the marketing manager. And you've got to find out what their need is, what their ego is demanding, what they're into, and then play to that, and then meet with them, get them on side. Then get the next introduction. So it's the same principle, mate. You're
exactly
right.
No, I'm definitely not a genius. All I do is absorb information and follow.
I think you're underplaying yourself. Okay, so we're still in Real Hub space, but Real Hub's going from, we're not going to print brochures anymore, boys. We're just going to become I love the shift in thinking from a physical service company to a tech company. I mean, that in itself must have completely changed the way you go about things.
100%. Everything then became it became a lot more, it just broadened everything. We had challenges with operational things, driving out utes, blah, 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 blah. You get new challenges, but then you broaden your way you think. You go, okay, cool. Well, now I can think about all of Australia or all of New Zealand, as well as, we were very commercially minded. So we knew that the multipliers on a sale or on a transaction when it comes to technology is going to be far greater than on a services business.
Yeah. tough marketplace. So essentially RealBase is a marketplace, or Real Hub at this point is a marketplace now.
Yes, correct.
They seem so hard, marketplaces, because, well, you've got to have cash flow to start a marketplace because it's a chicken or the egg thing. Do we go and get all the suppliers of brochures and signboards and photography and digital marketing, all that kind of stuff, or do we go and get customers? We're not going to get any customers without any suppliers, and you're not going to get suppliers without customers. So that does my head in. How do you do that?
So we were kind of, this is where we're kind of, I guess I almost use the word lucky, right? Because what most marketplaces face today, the challenge is exactly the chicken and egg, and it's a capital intensive business because they're low, usually low cost to the consumer. And so therefore, in order to do that, like an Uber Eats or a Deliveroo, you've got to pump in marketing dollars at scale, and you've got to be prepared to, eat, for lack of a better term, eat shit for a bit in terms of not make much cash. We had a very, because we had this physical services company, that was our capital machine. So we didn't borrow capital. We didn't have any bank loans. We didn't get any capital raises from any other companies. We just said, okay, 100% of the earnings from these physical services are going to pump up our marketplace. And because that then also gave us customers. So that was our influencer strategy to go, okay, well, we have this particular customer, now can we go and talk to their head office through a referral? And so the chicken and egg was really clear for us. It's customer first. We are the first supplier. And as soon as we get a customer that's outside of our particular core area, well, we'll just go and grab them a supplier that can and help them. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like that's probably not very helpful for anybody else who's looking to start a marketplace because it's very unique, but that certainly was our way around it.
One of the things with marketplaces where I've thought, and I haven't gone into too much deep thought about this, Frank, but I could start a marketplace. And even as a consumer of marketplaces like iSelect, which in Australia is a place where you go and find insurance providers and healthcare providers and all that, not all the big brands are there. And I always feel like I'm being not shortchanged, but my bases aren't all covered because not every supplier is there. For me, that's a slight problem, and it's a reason I don't use iSelect, for example. But did you have that challenge as well?
So it was the same strategy that I had with real estate agencies. I have to have the best and the biggest and the most influential, and the rest will follow.
Into place.
So in our space, there is 5 big players that will make up 80% of the market. And I would just just to your point, we won't make it if we don't have them. Mm. And so what I realized is as long as you get enough pressure from the client, so the consumer who wants that particular item, they will follow. Mm-hmm. So those were the big franchise groups. As soon as we had them and you went, okay, well, if you don't come onto the marketplace, you will miss out on, and some of these ones, we send these days $500 million to suppliers per year. So that's how many transactions are coming out of our system. So if you don't come onto our platform, and obviously it's a different scale, but if you don't come on, you're going to miss out on a big chunk of money. And then it was like, well, it's a no-brainer. You
said you talked in the present. You're not in there anymore, are you? But that's what it's turning over, or you only sold a percentage?
No. It's 100% acquisition, but I'm still very much.
You're still there.
I'm still there.
Good on you. I think you're on a hammock. I was expecting you to sort of turn this call on and you'd be, swinging on a hammock with your MacBook in your lap.
No. That's not in my nature, Tim.
Just tell me, just putting aside business for a moment, 3 brothers. Yep. You're under the pump. You're sweating bullets. Mum and Dad are owed $1 million. You're trying to build a business. How was the dynamics between the 3? Because family business is hard.
It's very hard. So look, I'm incredibly grateful for my brothers. We would not have had the success today if it wasn't for all 3 of us being together. We have core values that are very aligned, and then we have very different personal traits that couldn't be further apart. So I have a high level of empathy. I have the ability to meet, my role, and ultimately I think why I did well as a CEO and a leader in a business is because I had a very strong EQ and ability to mediate. So two of the brothers we'd have very contentious arguments, and I would play that role of mediator to be like, okay, how do we get, I know what you want. How do I get the win-win out of this situation? But there was times, probably 3 times I can recall, where it was the family almost broke up. Mm-hmm. And when I say the family, I mean the brothers broke up, and therefore it would make it very challenging because we're a close, tight family. We were born in South Africa, so we immigrated into Australia, and so we don't have any other family. It's just our immediate family together. And so there was 3 times, and one of them I recall was not that long ago. It's now we're hunky dory. We're all happy, all happy, not just because of the cash, but because we really brought the family together. But there was a time most recently, probably 2.5 years ago, where I was personally sitting in front of a piece of paper, bawling my eyes out. I'm 28 at this time. I'm bawling my eyes out, and I'm writing down in front of me what it is my one brother wants, what it is the other one wants, and I'm trying to figure out what is the middle ground. How do I solve for this problem? My wife's a clinical psychologist. She's standing behind me. She's an incredible woman, and she's like, Frank, this isn't your problem to solve. You can't do this. I was like, I have no choice. I was like, if we want to get an outcome in this business, we've worked so hard, I have to figure this out. But it was probably more like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like that's so the dynamics is like I'll never brush over. It's really, really hard, but it has brought our family so my brother challenged me the other day around, we're talking about the friend circle, and he's like, who is it in your life, Frank, that would go to war for you and fight for you? And I thought about that, and I was like, it's probably only my 2 brothers.
Your brothers,
that it's my brothers, because like we have, there's just so much trust between us, and I think that was part of the success was. I was in my lane doing my sales, those early days. My brother was in his lane, doing operations. The other brother was in his lane doing, engineering. There at no time did we ever have to stop and consider like, is my other shareholder or partner working hard? Like you knew they were working hard. You knew that. And so therefore you just got to not think about that particular area in the business. And now I'm so grateful.
I don't like using the word lucky, but I don't have another word for it right now. So you guys are lucky that you have such different skill sets and here you are full of empathy. You're out there selling, you building relationships, marketing's kind of your thing. You got a brother who's a tech geek and he's just there coding and as happy as Larry. And then you got an operational, that's, gosh, imagine if you're all full of empathy.
That's right.
Just be a hug and crying circle.
Yeah, that's right. We have the best hug and crying circle. Oxytocin would be very high.
Gee, Frank, what a wonderful conversation. You are running RealHub. You've got tens of staff. I think you got it up to 40, but then RealBase became 350 staff.
Yes.
Why and when was the name change from RealBase to RealHub to RealBase? And how do you scale without imploding?
So this is where the story gets juicy, Tim. So I feel like you'll like this one. So at this time, it's now roughly 4 years ago. We have gotten the business to a revenue of about 4.5 million. The team has scaled to about 40 people. There's no clear lines as to do we have a CEO, those kind of things. We're just all in the same room. We're all our culture is strong, and we're jamming. We're jamming now, and we have a high degree of confidence of where we're going to go. And that main competitor I talked about, that incumbent in the space, the one that had been around for 20 years, I have personally taken 30% of their business. And I have just closed a deal that's $700,000 per year recurring revenue. That's about to close in a month's time. Right. And I've been working on this deal for 4 years. I've been flying back and forth to Melbourne to close this deal, and I've finally got it. I get one of my team members walk from downstairs and they go, Frank, the CEO of that company is coming here to see you. And I was like, he's going to come and murder me. That was the only thing I could think of. Like I have single-handedly made, not single-handedly, we as a business have single-handedly made a huge impact into his life. And he walks through the door, we sit down, and I will give him praise every single day of the week for the rest of my life. He was very pragmatic, and he was very smart. And he said, Frank, we got to stop fighting. It's a zero-sum game. Prices are dropping. We're taking clients back and forth, which is all true. And he's like, we're not actually taking big leaps forward. We're just kind of chipping away at each other for no real benefit to anybody. He said, it's time to stop fighting and start working together. We need to merge our company. And he said, I have 2 requests. Number 1 is we merge, and number 2 is you, Frank, become the CEO of this company, because it's created a bit of a name for myself as this little young whippersnapper out there. And he said, if it's a war of attrition, you will win over time because you are half my age. He was roughly 55 to 60. I was at the time 28. And he's like, you will be able to last longer. But he's like, I'm going to give you a good fight for the next 5 years. It's going to be painful, but you're going to win over time.
You're going to win.
Now, Tim, we probably both know that's not the world's best negotiation starting ground. And so I had a high level of, okay, we're on the upper hand here. But I knew my brothers, and so he said, let's have a coffee. And my brothers at the time said, Frank, don't go have a coffee. It's a waste of your time. And I hated leaving an opportunity or a potential opportunity on the table. I said, I'm just going to go and just talk it out. So I knew my brothers had they were like, we're never going to do this. It's a terrible idea. So I had both this idea of we're in the power position, plus my brothers will never go for it. So if I do a deal, it has to be the best deal ever. The context here is they were 10 times the size of us in revenue, or 7, 8 times the size of us in revenue, 4 times the size of us in profit. And I said to them, okay, I will do a deal. I have 2 requests. Number 1, we have to move fast, because I didn't want to think that he would string me along.
Yeah.
Then that's this big deal that I'm about to close. The whole intention was to steal that back away from me. And so that was my first prerequisite. And the next was, it's got to be a 50-50 merger.
You've got the emotional and youthful upper hand. He's got the numbers. And
he's got the numbers.
You attached a huge amount of coin to the emotional. I love it. I love it.
I did. And within 6 weeks of that coffee, we merged our business. And so we then, we got a 50-50 merger. I then stepped in as CEO. The night of the client launching was our night of our merger agreement getting signed. And so that was the big fish had been stolen. And then I had to call the client and say, we've just merged. And that was actually a really bad one. Like, I felt really guilty about that, because I've been working on it for 4 years. And then the night they finally change, I have to call them and say, we've just merged, which was not ideal. That was definitely not ideal. However,
I don't quite understand that. The client is down in Victoria. They're obviously a real estate franchise or company.
Yes.
Why is it bad for them? They're just, they're still being serviced. The company's changing and people are the same.
Well, it's more that, like, I'm convincing them that we're a better business.
Gotcha. And now we're merging with your number one competitor.
And now we are the same business. Yes. We are the same business.
Yeah. You know everything I said about those guys over there. I had my fingers crossed. I was lying.
So luckily, I was always a big believer in, just like I didn't talk about the franchise today, I'd never talk about, I love a quote from Gary Vaynerchuk, which says, there's 2 ways to build a biggest building. You can either knock every building down around you, and by design, you have the biggest building, or you could just build the biggest building. And so the view there for me was, like, I'd never talked about competitors. The way I trained my sales team later was, don't even use their name, because it's free advertising for them. We have our own strengths, our own value proposition. Just talk about that. And so the beauty there is I never had to eat my words, because I never talked negatively about that competitor, which was beautiful.
Wow. That's interesting. I was just listening to an interview last night with Walter Isaacson, who's written the book Elon Musk, the biography on Elon Musk, and he was talking at length last night about the Twitter buyout by Musk, and he basically bought all the buildings around him, instead of starting his own social media. And it was painful, of course, Walter was with Elon through the whole negotiations, and he saw the pain. So, well done, mate. Incredible. Okay, so now RealBase is born. That's the new name of the 2 companies coming together.
Exactly.
You go along, things are busier. You got more people to worry about. Yep. You're now a CEO, chef to CEO. I'm trying to find the acronym of CEO with chef in it, but I can't find that. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes if it comes up. So you're running it. I imagine things get busy, things get more stressful, but hey, you're a young whippersnapper and you're just having a crack. Unless there is, and there's probably many things we could talk about inside that, Frank, but I'm pretty excited to hear then at some point the phone goes, and it ain't no angry franchise or it's domain.com.au. Did you get that call?
So it didn't quite work like that. So what had happened was, I realized the timing was right. We'd been in the game for 10 years. The market, in terms of what was happening in the US, they printed more money in 1 year than they had in their entire lifetime. And the equities market, it was the everything bubble. The everything bubble had been created. And I realized that, if it was ever a time to start having a conversation, it was now. And not just from that standpoint, right? That makes me sound selfish. It was also from, our position in the market. We'd become, the next closest competitor to us was 1/10 the size. For every 1 in every 2 properties that transacted in all of Australia and New Zealand came through our business. So we were this incredible market leader, but we were also always using our own capital. And so it was time to, we needed to find a partner that we loved, trusted, and wanted to go to the next level with. And so it was time for me to take the business to a transaction. And so I went through a competitive process. It was a huge learning lesson. It was probably the best learning I've had in my life. And I took it through a 9-month sale process where we had 10 parties. And we then got those 10 parties down to 3 entities, 2 of them publicly listed, one of them
10 parties as potential buyers.
10 potential buyers, yes. And so you can imagine I've got a pitch. So I was really big that I wanted to protect the business from this because it may not come off. It may fall on its feet or fall flat, sorry. And so I was like, it's just me and the CFO. We took the transaction. So I was in every lawyer's meeting, every accounting meeting, every advisor, every tech meeting, all of it, through the process. And so for 9 months, it was a grueling, intense process to sell this business. We then got down to 3 parties, got them all at the same price level. So we said, okay, this is the price level we want to be at. And then it was around, okay, well, who is strategically the best for our business? Who is from a values proposition going to bring the most value to our team? I'm a really big believer in my team. The team of people around me, they've done incredibly well and right by me, and I need to do right by them. And so one of my prerequisites to the deal was, well, if this person was at a party, would they be proud to say they were acquired by this business? And my answer is absolutely. They would be now. And so it was a grueling negotiation process, something that opened my eyes up. It was an expensive process. So to sell the business was $5.1 million. Of that, just the fees for KPMG was like $2.2 million. For the accounting, and you're doing this all without knowing.
I mean, naive Timbo. So I have to pause there.
It's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, KPMG, come on, guys. PWs, I don't care who they are. I mean, how do you get 2.2 million? That shits me.
But you know what? I would do it every day of the week because the outcome was incredible and they helped us get there.
Of course, and that's why they're charging like that because they know that right. It's in the scheme of things.
Yes,
it's chump change. Yeah. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
You'll like this one, Tim. So I remember, I'm very commercial. So when I sit at a boardroom, I often will calculate, okay, what is the cost of this per hour to sit here with all these people? Now the average
that's a mistake.
the lowest earning was $1,500 per hour, going up to a partner of $3,200 an hour. And I would get in this boardroom, there would be roughly 16 people.
Frank.
And so I'm going like the per hour here is like we'd have $45,000 hour meetings. And the first thing they would say is like, how's your weekend? And I'm like, no. I'm like, no. Like that's going to cost me $1,000 to answer that. Like, I'm not interested in that one. Let's move.
Goodness me. Righto. So just tell me, was it incredibly, I imagine stressful and busy and, in all those meetings, was it brutal?
It was. Those meetings weren't brutal, but as you compound everything, it was brutal. So you go there and you got to understand like your fight or flight. You're in that mode continuously because you still do not know is this going to pop off. So if you started the 9 months and said, "Hey Frank, at the end of this is 100% guaranteed you will sell this business for X," I'm laughing. It's like a 16-hour day. We're all having fun.
Yeah, but you don't know.
You don't know. So you have those 12-hour days. I've calculated that day costs $100,000. And, some of the shareholders that we merged with are telling me, Frank, this is a bad idea. You got to understand, I'm double your age. I'm wiser. We got to pull this business or we're not going to sell it. It's not going to work. You're dreaming kind of thing. And so then I have all of these, we had, by the end there, we had 10 different shareholders. So it's 10 stakeholders to manage through this process in terms of they want to know information. Is it going to happen? And I don't have a high degree of certainty. I think, and like we don't know the number. So it's like all these external factors. So like Tim, on my last day of the transaction, it all boiled over. And this, you've got to understand, like this is the day that it's signed and I'm driving to work and I burst into tears and I'm crying, I'm blabbering. I call my wife. My wife's like, you got to come home. Like you're a mess. And I'm like, I can't, I physically cannot. Like I've got all of these things lined up ahead of me. And that's on a day that should be really happy. It was just because it's just this crescendo of shit. Mm-hmm. And it was just a very highly pressure cooker environment. but my God, did I learn? Did I learn so much? Did I grow so much? This is like it's the ultimate MBA to go through that process, because I'm sitting in a room with people who are so intelligent, having conversations around our sale document, the share purchase agreement, is 170 pages of lawyer talk, and I'm reading that through. I'm not even very good at reading, and I'm reading through that through detail, and so the learning of that is just incredible.
Oh, goodness me. 10 questions just flash past the screen of my mind then. You as a person, Frank, what's it brought out in you that you didn't know you had? You're a chef, mate. You're a chef 10 years ago, 36 grand, fish, seafood.
I think it's just, I've learned so much. So did I ever think that I could be at the helm of a company of that scale? Like, no, I'd never even flashed before my eyes. But it's like step by step, gradually, like what has it brought out of me? I just think like my ability to, what I now call my intuition or my gut, I realized that it's not necessarily that, because 10 years ago I wouldn't have that same gut and intuition. It's just like all this compound learning that I've had over the time. And all that's happening is I'm subconsciously processing things very fast. So the biggest thing it's brought out to me is my ability to take a big ball of shit and very quickly distill and make a decision without it even kind of consciously processing, if that makes sense. So, hey, here's these 10 permutations, 10 problems. I go, that's the one I think we need to do. And I haven't really thought about it because my subconscious has done the processing.
RealBase sells for $180 million to domain.com.au. That's not 180 mil in your pocket because KPMG cost 179 mil. So you've got not quite. But you signed the deal.
Yep.
That's great. Happy days. Tell me about the moment. Tell us about the moment. You ring mum and dad and you got the check.
So what we did is, prior to the merger, we knew that the merger was going to be the next logical thing that this business was going to transact. And so what we did is, instead of giving them $1 million, we said, we're going to give them 2% of this company.
Oh, it's awesome.
And so the moment they closed, we called mum and dad. We just looked at our banks, and they got 3.8 or roughly 3.4, $3.5 million landed their account. And so we got that feeling that not only did we pay them back, but we paid them back more than that $1 million if they invested themselves would have ever done, more than any interest rate, and the amount of satisfaction and just amazing feeling that then they got to buy a house, buy an investment property. It was just like nothing you can ever believe. And that was more satisfying than anything for ourselves. And like the amount of proud.
All the tears of stress would pale into insignificance to the tears that you must have had.
Oh, it was incredible.
I'm holding back right now.
Yeah, it was an amazing feeling. We went on a family holiday. We flew the granddad over business. It was just like this amazing,
awesome.
It's just he came from South Africa over it, and it was just incredible. And just sharing that with the whole family, and like the family's never been closer. So all myself and my two brothers, we all bought our property. So my net total assets was my Volkswagen Golf before I sold, and then obviously selling, great outcome. We all bought houses in Curl in our same area, so now we're all within 3 minutes of each other. Like the family's never been closer. So I'm incredibly lucky in that standpoint.
Well, and deserved, mate. I don't know you from a bar of soap, but I feel like you are incredibly deserved of whatever's come your way.
Thank you.
Such a good story, Frank. Such a good story, mate. I feel like I need to close it there because that's the cherry on the cake. But you're trying to. I don't understand why you're doing this. So let's just finish here. You're trying to raise $1 million by creating a cookbook titled "Eat with Purpose for High Performers." You're bored?
I'm not bored. So what happened, Tim, was I'll give you the nice quick snapshot. I had this moment where I call it my purpose realignment, and it sounds very fancy, but really what had happened was, because we were very commercial, ultimately business was, I couldn't pretend to you that I love signboards, and there was just a huge passion to drill signboards, right? Like the passion was building something, creating something, having a team, and then at the end having a commercial outcome. And the moment that happened, I was a little bit lost. I was like, and I always knew this was going to happen. I met with a guy called David Sheen, Australia's first unicorn. And he said the moment he sold his business for $1 billion in year 2000 was he got into a deep depression in his life, because you realize that money is not. I've seen
that a fair bit. Yeah,
your money is not everything. And I came in prepared that was going to happen. And so I did a lot of reflection, self-reflection, and I went, what I do not want to be is the guy who the guy or gal who continuously builds the bit next. One day they own a private jet, they're a billionaire, and they're sad. I haven't spent time with my kids. I haven't spent time with my family. And I said, that is not going to be me. I'm now going to shift and change gears. But then I was walking with my wife in Shelley Beach, and I had this moment where I realized, well, actually, Frank, you have the abilities, the skill set to create commercial means. You have an obligation to the world for the people who do not have that skill set. You need to use what you have to do beyond yourself. And so then that was my purpose shift. I said, okay, I have a goal that this is outside of work hours. Remember, I'm still working full time. I'm going to raise $1 million for charity through using my skills. And I said, okay, well, how am I going to do that? And so I decided, because of my old days of being a chef, I have no intention to become a chef again, but because of those old days, I'm going to write a cookbook. It's going to be for high performing people who are health conscious and time poor, and 100% of revenue is going to go to charity. And so from that moment, it was roughly March this year, I said, okay, this is my new thing, my side hustle, my passion project. And so I will pay for all the cost of the book. I'll pay for all the cost of the content. So it's going to roughly cost me about $350,000, but that's my give. That's my
Really?
gift to, yeah.
What do you, who's setting your prices? KPMG?
No. Well, so what it is so I'm a very big believer in like, when you launch something, I don't want to launch it in 5 years, I sell this book, right? And I could do that and it'll cost me a lot less. But what I want to do is create an audience of people. So I'm on every social channel right now, on my Instagram, Frank Greeff _. I'm building an audience of people who are following this journey along from the start. So the moment the cookbook drops, I want to get to that goal in 2 months. That's my secret goal, is I want to get there in 2 months. And so my goal between now and July is to build an audience of 250,000 people. So the moment it drops, it goes. And so what I've done is, on my own personal way, like paying, I have a full-time content guy, a filmer and editor.
Brilliant.
who we film recipes twice per week. So I drop like 4 recipes a week on my Instagram, on my YouTube, all of that. We're doing different content. So we're all this stuff to bring people along for the journey, so that the moment it happens, it goes quick.
You'll have to listen to a past episode, Frank, with Kim McCosker from 4 Ingredients. She's written 41 cookbooks at the time of my interview, and now has a cooking show on Foxtel. So there might be a few tips in there, mate.
Wow, I love that.
So people can follow you and get involved in that cookbook.
Yes.
Frank Greeff, GREEF _ Insta, Facey.
Yeah,
wherever good books are made.
Yeah, exactly right. And so I'll be dropping the book next year, July, but now it's really all along for the journey around like how I'm creating the dishes, and also I'm doing bringing high performing people that I know and have met, and kind of, because for me it's the intersection between business, food, and high performance. I'm not just the chef guy. I'm trying to bring the business insights and stuff that we've talked about today into everybody in my audience as well.
Frank Greeff, you are an inspiration, mate. You reached out to me on LinkedIn. I thought, here we go. Get a few hit ups on LinkedIn, and most of them are absolute rubbish. And yours caught my eye, and boy, I'm glad I responded to you, because I think it's a great story, but it's actually a great story well told.
Thank you,
well done, buddy. I'm so happy for you, your folks, your family, and may your cookbook, do what it needs to and raise $1 million for charity. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you for having me on. Thanks for responding to my LinkedIn.
See you, buddy. Well, there you go, team. RealBase co-founder, now multi-millionaire. Good on him. Frank Greeff. What an absolute gentleman. What a story. God, I love business courage. I don't know whether I would have had the guts to put my folks' business on the line in order to build another one. But he had great self-belief, did Frank and his brothers. They seem like an awesome team, clearly, and the rest is history. I just loved that story. I didn't actually know the full extent of it. It was rolling out, and I'm going, what? Really? My mind's blowing up. This is incredible. Oh, look, honestly, hey, if you'd like to watch that interview, then feel free to lash out and join my uber expensive membership over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. And also, if you want a little bit more of me, join the Small Business Big Marketing Tribe over on Facebook. Either way, I'll see you on the inside. Righto, it's time for you to take action on what you've learned, because ideas remain exactly that without action. If you can find a few pennies to support the work I do, I'd love to see you inside my small business owners membership over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. Got some super big interviews coming your way over the next few weeks. So please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already on your favourite podcast app, and you'll be the first to know about them. And if you enjoyed today's ep, you'll find 654 more chats with successful business owners on your favourite podcast app. Not a bad deal. All for free. Hello. Big thanks to editor Sam Heathcote for stitching the marketing gold together, and to our in-house rock star Lockie Doley for his beautiful music bed that he wrote, sang, produced, recorded. Bang! Most importantly, though, a very, very big thank you to you for making the time to tune in. I get you are busy, your time is precious, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.